Okay, we made a step forward. Now we know how to declare a variable, how to store values in the variables, but this is a very basic program, very primitive. That's not what we want to do. Actually, we want something dynamic, like the case of your desktop calculator. When you set numbers, you make arithmetic operations, and then when you hit the equal button, you get the result. And by here, we get to today's task, which is setting an input, because we want to set the values. So how can, for example, set this 15 value or this 20, and then the program make the calculation and prints the sum of these two numbers. Let's see the algorithm of this. So here is the algorithm. First step is to display a message to the user as a hint to set the first value, because we want to tell the user, for example, please set the first number. And step 2, which is the one we work on today, is how to set the first value. And this is the part we are going to work on today. Step 3, to display a message again to the user as a hint to set a second value, like please set the second number. Step 4 is like step 2. The user needs to set the second value. Step 5 is to calculate the sum of both inputs and store it in a variable. And step 6 is to display the result, which is the sum. So let's do that programmatically. Now let's give a hint to the user to set an input. System.out.println set the first number, please. Semicolon. Now we get to the most important part of this tutorial. How can we set a value in Java? Now to set a value in Java, to set an input, we need to use a function that belongs to a class called scanner. And to use this scanner class, we need to import it. Now if you remember, in the previous video I talked about two categories of classes: classes which are imported implicitly and classes which are imported explicitly. We worked on an example of implicitly imported classes. Today the scanner class belongs to the category of classes which are imported explicitly. To import a class explicitly, we have two steps. First thing is to write the import statement, and the import statement is written out of the class, and I talked about that in the previous video when I said we write pretty much everything inside these two braces except for something, and that's the thing. We write the import statement out of the class. Now this is the syntax of the import statement. Import, write import java.util.scanner. Now how do you read this line of code? Read import, then after import read backward, like import the scanner class within the util package that belongs to the global Java package. By writing this line of code, we imported the class scanner. Now how do we use the class scanner? Actually, to use the class scanner, you need to create a copy of it. And this line of code, which we write now, creates a copy of the class scanner. Scanner S, let's call it, it's the name of the copy, equal to new scanner system.n. By writing this line of code, you are creating a copy from the class scanner that is pre-written by the Java team. you need to create a copy of it in order to use the functions inside this class. Now let's create our first variable. We just saw that. Int num1 equal to s dot next int. Now, what does this s.nextInt mean? When you run your program, once this line is executed, you will notice that your cursor blinks in the next line, waiting you to set a value. And when you set a value, this function will read your value, and if it matches the type of your variable, it will assign it to the variable. As an example, when we set 15, this nextInt will read the value 15. 15 is an integer and it matches the variable type, so it will assign it to the variable. That means it will store it in the memory. Now we go to the third step. We want to give a hint again to the user to set this second value, so just copy and paste. Copy, paste, and second, just change it second here. Next step is to enable the user to set the second value. S here is usable as many times as you want. So let's create the second variable first, int num2 is equal to s dot next int. Like that, we enable the user to set the second value. Now you move to the next step, which is calculate the sum of these two numbers set by the user and store it in a variable that we call sum. So int sum is equal to num. Click on Control space, and NetBeans suggests on you the variables that exist in the class. num1 plus num2 semicolon. Now we want to display the result. We just need to use the system out print ln the sum is plus sum. Like that, we are done with writing the code. Save the changes and let's run the program and see how it looks like. So here is the hint. Set the first number 15, set the second number. As you see here, your cursor is blinking, waiting you to set a value 20, and here is your output. The sum is 35. So today we learned how to set a value. It's up to you now to work on it. So your practice is to make the product of two numbers. You have learned everything about how to set an input, how to display message, how to display the result. If you don't understand something, leave that in a comment. I will try to answer. If you have any query, also don't hesitate to leave a comment. This is the end of our tutorial. See you in another tutorial, guys. Goodbye and good practice.